I came across this article on my Twitter timeline earlier today. I think it was Ben Norton of the Gray Zone who shared it, and um, very, very disturbing, frankly, what's going on in the US backed Syrian Democratic Forces controlled zone of what I guess was formerly, Syria. So it's from the AL Monitor. I'll link it in the description box down below. The author is Baron Zaman. U.S. oil company signs deal with Syrian Kurds. Sources told the AL Monitor the agreement to market oil in territory controlled by the U.S.-backed Syrian Democratic Forces was signed, quote, with the knowledge and encouragement of the White House. So anytime you see something with the knowledge and encouragement of the White House, you should do a double take because there's usually some nefarious, sketchy stuff going on, and this is frankly another clear example of that. The Kurdish-led autonomous administration of northern Syria has signed an agreement with an American oil company. Well-placed sources with close knowledge to the deal told AL Monitor. One of the sources said the agreement to market oil in territory controlled by U.S.-backed entity and to develop and modernize existing fields was linked last week, quote, with the knowledge and encouragement of the White House. Sources named the company as Delta Crescent Energy LLC, a corporation organized under the laws of the state of Delaware. The sources gave no further details about the company, but only say that they had been in talks for a long time and had received an OFAC license to operate in Syria, whatever that means. Obviously, the Syrian government, the rightful controllers of this region, didn't give them that ability. It was the supposed U.S. government and this company that are just looting the oil from Syria and taking a huge resource away from the Syrian government, along with the brutal, crippling sanctions that the U.S. has placed on Syria, along with the kind of ongoing warfare in the country. Just caused so much devastation, including like U.S. forces burning the oil fields. I mean, for God's sakes, it's disgusting, and this is just another form of imperialism or neo-imperialism, neo-colonialism that needs to be called out if you consider yourself on the left at all. And I kind of first bought the idea that the this controlled region by the Kurds with some amazing development. I was listening to people like the anarchist David Graeber talk about it when in fact it's just an attack on the Syrian state, and it's propping up U.S. imperial interests in the region. So that's why I've had a pretty big 180 shift on what's going on in Syria in this regard. Sanam Mohammed, the Syrian Democratic Council representative to the United States, confirmed via WhatsApp that Delta Crescent had signed an agreement with the autonomous administration, but said she had no further details. Oil is the autonomous administration's principal source of income. The source briefing AI Monitor confirmed that Lindsey Graham, the Republican senator from South Carolina who is close to President Donald Trump, had spoken to Mazloum Kobani, the commander-in-chief of the Syrian Democratic Forces, yesterday, and that Kobani had informed Graham of the deal and asked him to relay details of it to the U.S. president. So again, anytime, Graham, Pompeo, etc., Trump administration in general are in support of, this type of foreign policy decision, it's probably going to be on the wrong side of history and human rights and obviously the self-determination of the Assad government in Syria. Graham had confirmed that he had heard about the oil agreement from Kobani to CBS reporter Chris Ruffini, who then relayed this in a tweet. All right, let's see what the tweet is, just out of curiosity. Lindsey Graham says he spoke to SDF leader Mazloum yesterday, and they've signed an agreement with the American oil company to develop fields in the area. And again, it's just a way to further weaken and cripple the Assad government and to really just inflict more pain and suffering on the Syrian population to try to force a regime change to install a government that would, do the bidding of U.S. empire and other Western imperial interests. During his testimony to the Senate Foreign Relations Committee today, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, again, Mike Pompeo is really fucking horrible person, literally a war criminal. There's never been an invasion or a coup attempt he has not supported, so he's okay with this deal. That really, really shows you this is a fucked up thing that anybody who considers themselves on the left or has any type of anti-imperialist bone in their body really should not be supporting, and in fact should be condemning in the strongest possible way. The deal took a little longer, Senator, than we had hoped, and now we're in the implementation, he said. The sources told El Monitor the U.S. government also agreed to provide 2 modular refineries to the Autonomous Administration, but these would only meet 20% of its refining needs. Delivery of the refineries have been held up by logistical hitches related to the COVID-19 pandemic, the sources said. A Kurdish-led entity controls most of Syria's oil wealth, which is concentrated in and around the Rumelan fields close to the Turkish and Iraqi borders and in the Al Omar fields further south. Before Syria's civil conflict erupted in 2011, the country used to produce around 380,000 barrels of crude per day. Production is down to around 60,000 barrels per day, much of it refined in makeshift refineries and transported by leaky pipelines, causing massive environmental pollution. And again, huge part of this is because of the U.S. involvement in Syria, the war, the sanctions, propping up the jihadists that were trying to take down the Syrian regime. Oil is a politically radioactive topic, with the central government in Damascus accusing the United States of stealing it. It's like a fact. Trump's been on record saying that we're there for the oil. Trump declared last year in the wake of Turkey's October incursion against the SDF that he was keeping some 500 U.S. special forces in the Kurdish government space for the oil. Despite steadily tightening sanctions on the regime of President Bashar al-Assad, the United States has turned a blind eye to ongoing oil trade between the Kurds and Damascus. A fair amount of the oil is also sold at cut rate prices to the Kurdistan region of Iraq. Ankara is every bit as sensitive about the oil as it's been the vehicle for cementing the Syrian Kurds' self-rule project. Turkey has since 2016 been launching military operations against the SDF to disrupt its perceived attempts to establish a contiguous zone of control from the Iraqi border all the way to Afrin to the west of the Euphrates River and beyond. Turkey claims the SDF and its affiliates are terrorists because of their links to the outlawed Kurdistan Workers' Party, the rebel group that has been fighting for Kurdish self-rule inside Turkey since 1984 and is on the State Department's list of terrorist organizations. Sources said U.S. Special Envoy for Syria engagement reportedly had informed Turkey about the oil deal and that Ankara had not reacted negatively. Russia was also informed and not expressed a view, though certain fields are kept outside the deal so as not to ensure that the Syrian people outside the Kurdish zone were not deprived of their short oil. I mean, it definitely seems like the Syrian people are being denied their share of the oil, considering that most of the oil fields are now in this SDF controlled region of Syria, with the backing of the U.S. State Department, people like Mike Pompeo, Senator Lindsey Graham, and this U.S.-backed oil company, Delta Crescent Energy LLC. This is just, again, another form of imperialism, colonialism, trying to further weaken the Assad regime, further strengthen, its enemies, both within the borders of Syria and outside of it, to force regime change to install a government and a leader who would be, beholden to the U.S. empire and other, multinational corporations and interests for things like this. So, again, it needs to be really, frankly, called out and condemned for what it is. Peace. Much love.